What's happening, guys? This is Adi with Gate 7 International back with another deep dive. The club is keeping me busy. We've had a bunch of players announced by the insiders today, players that are coming in, including the player we are going to be discussing today, Sotiris Alexandropoulos, coming in from Sporting. We're really pumped to talk about him today. Excited. But before we get moving with the deep dive, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. Every engagement helps us grow the red and white community, and we are growing every day. So help us continue to build on that momentum and find even more fans of the red and white. And for those of you that are just tuning in, maybe this is your first scouting report, maybe this is your first show you're tuning into. We also do live subtitles in Greek, English, and French. For live shows, it takes about 24 hours for us to get those moving, but for the scouting reports, they go live once the video drops. So, moving on to the subject at hand, one of the names that was discussed today, he's going to be flying into Greece. At the time of recording, he's supposed to be flying in tomorrow. The deep dive will be announced by the time you're watching this. The player will have been announced. So he'll be signing. It'll be ideally Thursday, with recording being done on Wednesday. The player's exciting. It's a player that we're pretty familiar with so far. Alexandropoulos, as many of you may remember from a couple of years ago, he was playing for Panathinaikos. He's a product of their youth system. Currently 21, right-footed center midfielder, stands at 6 foot 1 inches, 186 centimeters. He's 174 pounds, 79 kilos, so pretty stocky build, all things considered. And despite playing a lot of times, usually as a deeper center mid, he also has played further forward as an attacking mid. Last season at Sporting, he really didn't play a lot after being sold to them by Panathinaikos. He barely played 300 minutes. This is yet another signing in a row that the fan base is pretty happy about. We had the first three signings. A lot of you were complaining. Now, two signings in a row, everyone's excited for. Not just because he's young and with a solid profile, but because he's familiar with the Greek league. We've seen him before. We know that he has potential. It was 2 years ago last time we saw him. He was 19, but 21, it's still a good age, and there's a lot of potential to be had here. The deal, as you guys may have seen, it's a loan with a 4 million euro buyout option. The player himself is a great ball carrier, pretty quick feet as well, speed, vision, and a penchant for some one-on-ones. Full of potential. He's been limited by time and does have some consistency issues. We're going to touch on that as we go through the scouting report. Not the best ball winner either, but all in all, in terms of his ball playing ability, quite solid. Now, since he did play just over 300 minutes in Portugal, the data that we pulled is going to be from his prior season at Panathinaikos because it's a better sample. He played almost 2,000 minutes for Panathinaikos, and I still believe it's going to be relevant because I think he'll assimilate into the Greek league similar like he did before, and that's why I think it's still going to be pretty relevant, despite the fact that the data is going to be 2 years old. So let's get into it. Let's check out the first set of data, the percentile data comparing him to the rest of center mids and DMs when he was playing in Greece for Panathinaikos. And as we see here, compared to other mids, he did have an above average amount of goal threat. So if we're looking in that bottom category right here, that's where the goal threat is. Context for the goals that he scored were runs up the middle. Now, whether it was from an interception or a pass up the middle, this is where the goals came from. He would carry the ball up and rip a nice shot, whether it was just up near the 18 or just inside the penalty box. He's not a set piece monster. A little bit better in open play. Pretty remarkable goal efficiency, too, we have to say, and shot efficiency. This guy gets a lot on the target. And you can see here, looking at his shot percentage on target, it's about as close to 100% as you can get. So 60% of the shots that he takes are on target, which is pretty good, better than what I've seen for the majority of midfielders, especially in the Greek league. He did outperform his XG, though. I do want you guys to pay attention to that because that does give us a little bit of question about sustainability in this regard. But I will say this, his volume of opportunities at Panathinaikos, especially 2 years ago, were very low. So when we take into consideration the reduction of his volume by playing for Panathinaikos, I believe that when he plays for Olympiacos, we'll see more attacks, increased attacking opportunities. So I would expect that he would get a pretty decent volume of shot opportunities for us, all things considered. Assist creation, impressive. You can see it here in the data. He does outperform his expected assists, but he what I focus on here is this penchant for him to cut some lovely passes through the defense. It's part of what kind of caught people's eye. Maybe you guys remember it, maybe you don't. But whether he was drawing a defender to him, using his dribbling ability to kind of separate and then play a nice ball through, or drawing a defender and then playing it through the defender attacking him and playing it kind of through him and the defender behind him. He had some great balls that cut right behind the defender. And this skill set is probably something that was of value not just to Diego Martinez, but also to Antonio Gordon. Greek player, has has vision, we can say that. And this is something that Diego Martinez can work with. So, goal threat wise, I think this player represents an option that maybe we don't see already in some of, especially in some of our deeper midfield options outside of maybe guys like Madi. Um, even in Bum Huang on occasion, we have another guy here that can do that and has ability to dribble on people. Now, while we're talking about dribbling, we're going to move on to the build up and possession part of the segment. And when you look at his build up stats, I'm going to level with you guys. They don't look impressive on paper. Compared to other center mids, it's very low volume, especially when progressing the ball forward with passes. His volume when carrying the ball forward is solid. He can definitely dribble himself out of a press, but we do see dribble success fall when he's taking 1v1s, moving forward. Um, I'm not super worried about that because he takes those risks going forward. This is usually in scenarios where he's trying to make space for himself or create something forward. But when he's got the ball in the midfield or when he's deeper in our half, I didn't usually see him losing the ball trying to escape a press or create space for himself. Going forward, when he was trying to take people on, we would see him sometimes lose the ball here and there, but he has confidence. He's not afraid to lose the ball. He's not afraid. He'll keep doing the same thing. Would you like to see confidence in a young player like that? Um, I I will say that I did see there were occasions, a lot of occasions where he did prefer to kind of dribble the ball versus release it. Maybe this is a reason he didn't see some success at Sporting because the name of the game and with some a lot of these Portuguese teams, especially the top teams, they want to see more pass and move, not dribble, dribble, dribble. Especially early on in the games, especially in the final third, they do want to see pass and move and on counters as well. So outside of this, when moving to the final third or he's in the final third, he can pick out lovely passes from behind the defensive line. But I didn't see a lot of him in build up, like moving the ball out of build up, passing the ball forward, getting it to the wide areas. If he had the ball, he was trying to dribble the ball forward and then maybe lay it off unless he was in the final third, kind of like what we would expect an attacking mid to do. Pass accuracy below average compared to other center mids, that's for sure. Um, but when regarding pass accuracy, this he's not just losing the ball all the time, guys. The difference between where he sits and where the upper quartile is, or where the upper segment of the most accurate passers are, he's only a few percentage points off. So he's not off by much. So bear that in mind as you look at it. And I do account for some of the poor passing with this player. I place some of that blame on Panathinaikos because their possession game 2 years ago was not great, very low overall team passing numbers. And so it makes sense for his numbers to be low by association when you're not controlling for possession on the ball from other teams. So this is another case where it's not for a lack of ability that his numbers are low. It's more so the context for the situation that he's in with the team that he's on, as well as his preference to dribble versus pass. And maybe this will limit his ceiling if we're not considering further development. If he can develop better and really round out his pass and move game and be better and more mature about when he needs to give up the ball versus passing it, he is worth multiple times over his 4 million buyout. That is for sure. I know that a couple of years ago when I talked about the the value of this player while he was still at Olympiacos, I may have mentioned this as well. Regarding his defensive characteristics, it's pretty clear, and again, this is could be a reason why maybe he didn't succeed at Sporting in Portugal. His defensive end of his play needs work. This is something we know Diego Martinez demands from players, not just tracking back, but from midfielders being competent in their defensive ability. And while he is a solid playmaker, which is going to be valued by Diego Martinez, his lack of ability to read the game on the defensive end could see him spending a lot of time on the bench, at least in the beginning. Below average when it comes to defensive duels. The middle segment there is where you can see the defensive characteristics and where he ranks as a percentile, or where he did rank 2 years ago compared to other players in the Greek league. So below average when it comes to defensive duel volume. Although he does win the majority of the duels, his volume is maybe not where you would want to see it if you were expecting a more defensive midfielder. His interception occurrence is also pretty low. I didn't see much ability from him to anticipate the play. Positioning also is kind of all over the place, very inconsistent in this regard. I saw him caught forward, caught backward, sometimes not even marking a man. This area of his game needs to improve. Now, with a coach like Diego Martinez, with the experience that's around him, I don't see why this wouldn't improve this season, but this is a huge area. He improves here, he becomes a completely different player, much more well-rounded. Then again, if he was more well-rounded in this regard, we probably wouldn't see him in Greece again. I'm also not surprised that he's not good in the air. Um, he sits at the 20th percentile when it comes to aerial duel wins. He makes his presence known in the defensive third, and he can block some shots. He's actually pretty good defending against set pieces. Overall, he's just very poor in the air. He's aggressive on those set pieces and usually is a pretty good man marker, probably following instruction, which you like to see. But again, overall, the defensive area of his game, it does require some improvement. So now that we are finished with the overall profile of the player, now it's time for a comparison. And you guys may or may not like the comparison I made, but we're going to take a look at him compared to Andreas Bouchalakis. And I did this comparison for a couple of reasons. Firstly, I received a lot of comments about Alexandropoulos, and a lot of you commented, some of you even messaged me about, "Oh, great, he's here, now we can kick Bouchalakis out, we can replace him." And while maybe at first here reading that, I wanted to buy into that dream, the reality I saw while looking at the data and watching the tape, it's a little bit different, unfortunately. And I know you guys hate it because every time I talk about Bouchalakis, I burst the bubble that all of you have when it comes to us getting rid of him. The 2 players have different value propositions, and you can see that in the radar chart here. While Alexandropoulos is a faster player, he's better closing players down, better at carrying the ball, better getting the ball forward carrying the ball, and better at getting opportunities on frame. Bouchalakis is a better distributor. Especially when it comes to long balls, deep lying playing balls. He's more involved in buildup. Again, we are he does get a higher volume of attack, so that does maybe play a role in that. But as much as I just talked about Alexandropoulos being having great vision and being able to cut some of these passes, Bouchalakis has proven to be better in this regard, better at breaking the lines of the defense, especially from deep. So although I believe that on a per 90-minute basis, Alexandropoulos will see increases in a lot of the values you see here. Alexandropoulos is in the red radar where Bouchalakis will be on the blue. I do think we'll see some increases in these values. We'll see Alexandropoulos kind of get close to, if not beat Bouchalakis in some of these respects. But where I don't think he will match Bouchalakis, or where I don't think he will be the same type of player as in regards to his progressive passing, especially lying deep into the penalty area or final third. I don't see that happening. Bouchalakis is a deep distributor. I see Alexandropoulos kind of playing a little bit more box to box, carrying the ball forward, and if he's going to play the ball in, it's going to be a little bit in a more elevated position. So with that respect, I don't see the entrance of Alexandropoulos as the reason for the departure of Bouchalakis. Whether you guys are happy with that or not, that's just how I see it here. Bouchalakis at the current moment, even with the likes of Ibora here, even with the likes of Mari, does serve a purpose as an extra deep lying playmaker because he is going to be kind of the closer deep distributor, the closest thing we have to a Jan Villa with Madi also closer. But again, Madi doesn't like to sit deep. Madi does like to get forward as well. So all of this taken into consideration, what is the verdict here? We've looked at the profile. We've compared him to Bukhalakis, and maybe I've upset a couple of you guys by saying that probably Bukhalakis isn't going nowhere. So what is the verdict? What's the outlook on this player? It's a loan with a buyout already right away. That's low risk. $4 million buyout. With the FFP considerations that I brought up constantly, this is why we see so many loans. Right now, we can't afford to make the big signings until we really sell players. We know Oleg is going out the door. At the point of recording, Zinkernagel's gone. 3 plus 1 million in bonuses, 500K for Bututsi with a bonus on top of that as a sell on. So until we really sell Oleg and add the money that comes from Oleg, we're not going to see some of these big purchases. So this is a loan. It takes the FFP burden off of this season and pushes it to next season if we go with the buyout. And 4 million euros, guys, that's us at this stage with what's going on at the club. This is pretty expensive. But if we see what I think we can see from Alexandropoulos, I believe it's well worth it. I believe he will be worth that 4 million. He'll join our other deep midfielders like Huang, Mari, as I brought up before, Ibura, and of course the man we compared him to, Bukhalaki. So we've got a pretty deep roster of deeper midfielders here. I don't see him coming in and right away becoming a starter. He'll be a depth option until he can prove himself. We'll probably see him play maybe in cup games or in these games where we're playing 2 a week. He'll play probably against weaker competition in the beginning until we see what he's got. Taking into account what we've seen from Ibora, because if you guys remember when I did the scouting report on Ibora, I told you that signing can't be judged until we see what else comes in with center mid. I told you we had to bring another center mid, and here we go. We did bring one. That being said, I think this is a great signing, especially considering what we've seen from Ibora so far. He's Greek, boatloads of talent, just waiting to be refined. And he's got plenty of veteran guidance around him to really get him to that place where he needs to be. I think it's a great signing. You look at who else we have here. Looks like Madi's sticking around. We have Inbam Huang. And then we have Ibora, even Bukhalakis, who's more defensive, despite the fact that his preseason has not been extremely impressive. It's another defensive guy around. And now you have a young guy like Alexandropoulos. He's Greek. He understands the league. He understands what it means to play for this club or play for a top club. So we've got a nice spread of talent, diverse skill sets, which I've talked about before, especially with the Jackson Porozo deep dive. Diego Martinez loves to have a diverse set of skills that he can call upon, so for different opponents, especially in Europe. So I like the signing, and I think he's going to have a solid season with us here at Olympiacos. I hope you guys enjoyed the deep dive. I hope you found this informative. I hope you have found all of the deep dives informative so far. There's a lot more to come. I'm going to be stuck in this office. I'm going to be stuck here, not leaving the house, doing scouting reports for you guys, but I love to do it. I love to do it all for you. This is Gate 7 International, by the fans, for the fans, and I will see you, ladies and gentlemen, for the next deep dive. So until then, you all